Coming up, hear why the nation's leader says a continuance to the emergency orders was needed. Also, the Deputy Prime Minister announcing additional financial assistance as the country combats COVID-19. And the Minister for Grand Bahama reiterating the importance of staying at home. The Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, Northern Edition.
You're watching the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening, all. I'm Shashina Wolf-Arkus, and as always, it is so great to have you with us. Topping news, the Bahamas now has 14 cases of COVID-19 to date, 2 in Grand Bahama and the remaining cases in New Providence. The latest numbers released during a special press conference led by the nation's chief on Sunday night. Today, the nation's leader in the House of Assembly made his contribution on the continuance of the emergency order, while adding why some tough decisions had to be made regarding the closure of the borders to returning Bahamians. This as he also defended the decision to keep liquor stores closed. During the Prime Minister's contribution to the debate on the resolution to approve the continuance of the emergency orders to April 8th, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis noted why it was important, with consultation from medical professionals, to make this extension to this time frame as opposed to April 30th, as suggested by circulated reports on social media.
It was their opinion that they needed additional time to complete their data collection, their analysis and interpretation, so as to make determination as to the way forward. Mr. Speaker, they've also introduced GIS mapping, and of course they would want to complete interpretation of the mapping. That's extremely important, Mr. Speaker, because with the GIS mapping, they can locate the areas that we would consider hot spots if they develop clusters of COVID-19. And that would put us in a position where we can make determination, where we can have isolated curfews or what you call lockdown in certain areas so as not to spread out of given hotspots should the need arise.
While there has been some criticism regarding the closure of the borders to returning Bahamians, the nation's leader shared why this had to be done.
And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that there are Bahamians who are presently outside, and because their borders closed, they cannot return. However, Mr. Speaker, decisions are made in the best interest of the country, and every country has done similar things, most I should say, and there are many, that's why I changed, I said most. And in fact, in the Caribbean, they fall in the similar situation where citizens may be caught outside. However, for those who are caught outside, I would advise that they follow the recommendation and the directive given by the various government, whichever territorial borders they are in. They would be led as to the best outcome possible.
And there is the issue of the closure of liquor stores. He says this too is done based on the advice of local and international professionals.
No, alcohol is not recommended. And in fact, it's thought that alcohol would exacerbate the social problems that one may have in environment under these circumstances. And that is also the recommendation by WHO, Mr. Speaker. So no, I do not support it. And the alcohol stores are closed and they will remain closed.
And here is his advice to Family Islanders.
I would send out a clarion warning to or call or advice to those in the Family Islands. We know that there's evidence of increase of marine activity, yachts, etc., coming into our shores, running to so-called safe haven Bahamas, and therefore we must be very careful not to allow individuals who have not gotten proper clearance to enter our shores, because they're running away from so-called hotspots, and we're exposing ourselves to what they're running away from, to bringing such potential disease entities here to our Bahamas.
Well, meantime, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honorable K. Peter Turnquest, giving an update on the government stimulus measures in response to COVID-19 in the House of Assembly this morning. This new package includes additional social assistance for workers.
The department started administering this program early in the week, and applications are flowing. Since March 22nd, we have received and are processing some 1,430 applications. Applicants will be advised of the date to collect the food coupons from the Department of Social Services, Sunshine Plaza, Blue Hill Road, with effect from Wednesday, 1st of April 2020, from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. The food assistance vouchers under this initiative are valued at $100. They are to be dispersed every second week, primarily to persons within the hospitality industry who are facing reduced work weeks.
And as part of the update, the DPM noted that a government tax credit and tax deferral employment program has also been introduced that will provide businesses with payroll support in an effort to protect some 10,000 jobs for qualified businesses. In addition, an expansion in unemployment assistance for self-employed workers was also announced.
Where due to forces entirely beyond their control, thousands of self-employed persons who rely on the flow of cruise ships and stopover visitors are now unable to make a living over the next few weeks. As such, the government has partnered with the National Insurance Board to design a temporary program that will provide weekly payments of $200 to persons who meet the eligibility criteria for a period of up to 8 weeks. That is, an eligible person can receive up to $1,600 over an 8-week period.
While other measures included support for small and medium-sized businesses, training opportunities, the reprioritization of capital projects at the Ministry of Works, accelerated approvals for capital and foreign and direct investment projects as well. The DPM also noting that special assistance will be granted to Family Island administrators.
The Ministry of Finance is allocating $1.8 million to support the Family Islands, specifically to be used for any COVID-19 related expenditure. The new allocation is in keeping with the government's commitment to reprioritizing existing resources and to provide the necessary support to keep communities safe. Mr. Speaker, the allocations for the different islands range from $10,000 to $325,000, with the average being approximately $76,000. Strict financial management protocols have been put in place to administer the use of these funds. Under no circumstances are the COVID-19 emergency order budgetary allocations allowed to be used for the normal, routine Family Island, local, and central government expenditures.
Now, during the national address last evening, the Prime Minister provided the country with an update on the government's efforts and response to the health and economic challenges posed by COVID-19. Italia Hall has more.
The number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the country moving up to 14. Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, confirming that there are 3 new cases of COVID-19. The cases are in New Providence. The 3 latest cases include a 41-year-old female with no history of travel and unconfirmed links to previous cases. The female remains stable and is in isolation at home. A 44-year-old male with no history of travel and unconfirmed links to previous cases. The male is hospitalized and remains in stable condition. And a 67-year-old male with a history of travel but with no direct link to previous cases. The 67-year-old male is hospitalized and remains in stable condition as well.
All of the cases are doing extremely well. We have seen a doubling of confirmed cases over the last 4 days. We anticipate more cases in a short period of time over the coming 20 days. And this suggests that we are at the beginning of an expected surge.
The Ministry of Health Surveillance Unit has started the process of mapping COVID-19 cases to help identify potential clusters of cases to mitigate the spread of the virus in communities. The Prime Minister announced that the House of Assembly will meet this week to debate a resolution to approve the continuance of the emergency powers.
The resolution will ask for approval for the continuance of a state of emergency until the 8th of April 2020, inclusive of the emergency powers and authority in the two orders. The resolution extends the emergency proclamation for an additional 8 days. We must avoid speculation and rely on health officials to continue to advise where the country is in the fight against COVID-19.
He says citizens must be guided by health officials and reliable information from credible sources, as his office became aware of a voice note circulating on social media over the weekend. In that voice note, a man could be heard saying that the Prime Minister will announce a countrywide 30-day shutdown on Monday, March 30th. Now, Prime Minister Minnis says that claim is fake news.
Such information could have led to panic and a run on grocery stores and other establishments that could harm our efforts to contain the COVID-19 virus. This matter has been turned over to the Commissioner of Police for further investigation.
To help stop the spread of COVID-19, the Royal Bahamas Police Force will increase efforts to enforce the curfew regulations, as the Prime Minister says there are still too many vehicles on the road.
Individuals aged 75 and older are asked not to leave their homes. Those between the ages of 65 and 74 should work from within their homes. And the purpose is not to isolate our senior citizens by asking them to stay at home. The purpose is to save lives.
Family members should stay in regular contact with older relatives and ensure that they have their regular medications, groceries, and supplies so they don't have to leave their homes. Grocery stores with the capability are encouraged to activate online shopping platforms to reduce the number of people having to come into their stores for food, supplies, and the length of time customers have to spend in the store. The government will also introduce a food shopping schedule.
Shopping days and times will be designated based on the first letter of a person's last name. More details will be released further this week. This measure is intended to reduce the number of people on the road and to reduce the number of people at grocery stores at any one time. This is to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Again, let me stress, our food stocks are healthy. There are no shortage of food supply. There is no need for panic buying.
The nation's leader says he knows that the emergency measures are difficult, but they were put in place to save lives, and they will only last as long as it is necessary. It's Talia Hall, ZNS Network News.
Well, the nation's leader also announcing additional measures under the emergency order. Pharmacies will now only be allowed to operate from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Banks will be allowed to operate from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Landscaping and property maintenance businesses and janitorial service businesses will be allowed to operate on Saturday and Sunday only. Pool maintenance businesses will be allowed to operate on Friday and Saturday only, and all street or roadside vendors will be prohibited from operating. This does not include newspaper vendors who should remain at one location. To ensure that the reconstruction efforts on Grand Bahama and Abaco, as well as Ragged Island, do not come to a halt, construction companies working on rebuilding projects on those islands have been exempted from the emergency orders. Hardware stores to service those construction companies have also been exempted. Now, the PM also advising that all public parks will be closed beginning at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, 31st of March, as previously announced. Exercise will only be permitted within the confines of your property or your immediate neighborhood. Driving to any exercise site or facility is prohibited. And switching gears, the Minister of State for Grand Bahama reiterating the stay-at-home message as the country continues to battle the COVID-19 pandemic. He's also advising non-essential businesses to adhere to the emergency orders that are now in place. Our Jamila Mizik has this report.
Minister of State for Grand Bahama, Senator the Honorable Kwesi Thompson, says despite the measures outlined in the COVID-19 emergency order, there are still too many people on the streets of Grand Bahama, and he is emphasizing that Grand Bahamians must take it seriously.
We have the power in our hands to determine whether we are going to have a big surge with respect to this, or whether we can keep this under control. And I think a lot of it, the power is in our hands. And so I want to encourage individuals to stay at home. I want to encourage individuals to listen to the health professionals. I want to encourage them that they must shelter in place as the order has indicated.
The minister says there has also been reports that a number of businesses not exempted by the order are continuing to operate and are asking employees to report to work, even though they are not exempted.
The police will be enforcing the emergency order. And so I will again call upon all businesses who are not exempted to please cease their operations in accordance with the order, allow those employees to shelter in place.
Now, over the weekend, health officials confirmed Grand Bahama's second case of COVID-19, a 35-year-old female with no significant travel history and no known links to the previous case. Grand Bahama Health Services COVID-19 Task Force Coordinator, Dr. Frank Bartlett, giving an update on those GB COVID cases, says both of the infected persons are being managed out of hospital and they are in stable condition with mild symptoms.
We are now in the process of completing our contact tracing. Contact tracing is the process by which we identify, assess, and manage those patients or the contacts of the persons. Now, to date, we would have identified between both cases, some 60 to 70 contacts. Those names are taken, we monitor them on a daily basis. If they do become symptomatic, then they are to be tested. One thing that's important for everybody to understand is that even if you are a contact of a person who has been tested positive, it doesn't mean automatically that you are to be tested for the COVID-19. We are testing symptomatic patients.
Now, he says the number of persons on that contact list does not include persons who have been advised to self-quarantine.
When we talk about self-isolation, it means those persons who have tested positive for the virus, and the intent is to separate sick persons from those who are not ill or who don't have the virus. Quarantine refers to limiting the movement of a person who has not been tested or diagnosed as having the COVID-19 case. So if we look at just with this exercise alone, and we're still crunching figures, we probably have some 200 persons that we know of who've come through our system. And this is not inclusive of those persons who may access other healthcare centers. We have some 200 persons now that we have under self-quarantine.
Dr. Bartlett reiterating that persons should continue to practice social distancing and stay at home to reduce the possibility of community transmission. Jamila Mizik, ZNS Network News.
Stay with us, there's more on the other side of the break.